Okay, we're going to learn a Maamar, a short class today. The Maamar on Parshas Bamidbar, although it's not the Haftorah of this week, because this week is Shabbos, is Erev Rosh Chodesh, so we have Machar Chodesh. Nevertheless, it's the Haftorah of Parshas Bamidbar and also connected to Matan Torah. So this is a Maamar from Parshas Bamidbar, Beis Sivan, the year Tafshin Chavav, which is 1966. In the Haftorah goes, Vehaya Mispar Bnei Yisroel, and the number of the Jewish people will be Kechol Hayom, like the sand by the sea, Asher lo yimad, that you can't measure, v'lo yisaper, that you can't count. So Miroiv, because it's going to be so many Jews. There's Kenan Hara. Then instead of saying, right, this is the narrative today, that the Jewish people are not the chosen people, not God's people. We are the children of the living God. The sons of Yehuda and the sons of Yisrael, meaning both the kingdoms. This is a prophecy of Hosea. So the kingdoms of Yehuda and the kingdoms of Israel. And there's going to be one head for both of the Jewish people. Because great is the name of great is the day of Yisrael. Okay, we'll see what Yisrael means in a second. We know that the points that have to be understood about this verse, which is the Haftorah traditionally of Parshas Bamidbar, again not for this year. That Shebetchila Nemar Vehaya Mispar Bnei Yisroel pasuk starts off. Isaiah says that there's a number for the Jewish people. There's a number of Vehaya Mispar. The number of the Jewish people is going to be a number. A number means that you could attribute, you could count them, or even if you can't actually count them. Again, the Maamar is based beside on the Likutei Torah, which talks about sand versus dirt. But in theory, there's a number that we could attribute to the Jewish people. And then it says, that there should be a number of the Jewish people. The number is going to be a great number. But then the pasuk continues, that you can't measure, you can't count. So it's a number that can't be counted. What does that mean? Meaning to say the Jewish people are going to be beyond the number, or almost beyond counting. Also, it has to be understood. What is the connection? How does the flow of the verse go? Meaning to say, it says, Vehaya Mispar Bnei Yisroel, that the Jewish people is going to have a number. Again, they're going to be so numerous that they're going to be, that you're not going to be able to count them or measure them. But then the pasuk continues, as the pasuk continues, and the verse 2 of, this is chapter 2 of Hosea. So verse 2 says, that instead of saying that instead of saying that the Jewish people are not the chosen people, the verse is going to say that the world is going to recognize that that we are the children of the living God. So what's that have to do with the counting of the Jewish people? Although this is all talking about futuristic, about the Tayyiz and Mashiach, but what's the connection between the two messages? The message that there's going to be many Jewish people, and the idea that the Jewish people will be no longer people won't be saying that we're not the God's people. And then the pasuk continues, the Jewish people will be counted, will be gathered, for great is the name of Israel. Okay. Well, again, we'll explain what Israel means in a second. The pasuk kanal Chag Shavuos, what's this all to do with the holiday of Shavuos? Because the Hinei Psukim Elu Hemi Haftarah Parshas Bamidbar. These verses are part of the Haftarah of Shabbos Bamidbar. That's always read before the holiday of Shavuos. The like of Parshas Nasai, unlike Nasai Shirak, only sometimes Nasai is read before Chag Shavuos, but traditionally the Parsha Nasai is read after Shavuos. Like this year, even in Eretz Yisrael, it's read the day after Shavuos, but it's after Shavuos. The fact that we always read Bamidbar before Shavuos means that the message that we're saying in this Haftarah should also be connected to Shavuot, to the holiday of Matan Torah. We know that Parshas Nitzavim, like the Rambam brings down, we always read Nitzavim before Rosh Hashanah, and therefore there's a connection. After Nitzavim, Hayom is going on Rosh Hashanah. The like Parshas Vayelech, Rosh Hashanah, Parshas Vayelech is either when it's with Nitzavim Vayelech, it could be that we also read Vayelech before Rosh Hashanah, but it's not always. Sometimes Shabbos Shuvah is Vayelech. If there's a Shabbos between Sukkot and Yom Kippur, so then Hazinu will be the Shabbos between Sukkot and Yom Kippur, and Vayelech will be Shabbos Shuvah. Otherwise, Shabbos Shuvah will be Hazinu, and Vayelech will be together with Nitzavim read before Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, and therefore we know clearly that Hazinu, that Nitzavim has a connection to Rosh Hashanah. After Nitzavim Hayoim is going on Rosh Hashanah. Is that moving from this? We have to assume also Shagam after the Parsha Bamidbar, Shbar Nemer Psuka Manal, that the Parsha Bamidbar, therefore the Haftarah Bamidbar, which talks about this verse of the counting the Jewish people and the gathering the Jewish people, the day of Israel, and the idea that the people we're going to be recognized as the God's people. This all has a connection to the Chag HaShavuos. Meaning the idea is like this. This idea that the pasuk says that the number of the Jewish people will be a number that can't be counted and can't be measured. It explains, meaning what does this mean? He says, he brings down Maamar that the number itself will be beyond, the number will be a number that's beyond counting. So there'll be counting and beyond counting. What does this mean? Any kind of number, no matter what the number is, the number is limitations. It's limited to that number. Even if you say a trillion, it's a trillion. It's not a trillion and one. If you say a trillion and one, it's a trillion and one. It's not a trillion and two. A number is limited. The essence sphere. So where do we find limitations in creation? Starting from the 10 attributes. It's 10. Shehem Mispar Bnei that we know that there's specifically 10 attributes. It's 10, not 9, not 11. Mispar Bnei Yisroel, the Rebbe talked about in previous Maamar in that same year. Mispar who Aleph Midal Da Pirushim Inyanim Yeshna B'Inyan Spirit. That the idea that there's a number is one of the components of the 10 attributes. That there's a number specifically that it's 10. And there's other elements of the attributes, the midos, etc., the different kind of attributes. But there's one of the ideas that it's 10. Is explaining other Maamarim of the Tzemach Tzedek and Parshas Chaisar, obviously, which is a parsha that talks about numbers 120 and 7, which is the life of Sarah. So that starts off with, even in the higher worlds, where there's the concept of the Esespheres in the world of Atzilus, or even the Esespheres Agnuzes, in any system of creation where there's already division of 10 numbers, that's limited, specifically where there's limitations in our physical world. So what's the idea that there's a number that can't be counted? The idea is that we, within the numbers, which means basically the idea in Chassidus is that to bring in limitless within limitations. That the mispar, which is limited, should be lo yisafar v'lo yimad, that you can't count and you can't measure, which means that within the numbers there should be shlemayla min mispar, above counting. The idea is that the power of we have three things here. We have gvul, we have bli gvul, means we have limits, we have limitless. So those are already two, but they're two separate worlds. Either you're in a space of limitations, or you have no space of limitations, but but by definition, it's limited to being limitless. So just like the famous idea that we say, just like God is limitless, you can't limit him to being limitless. He could also make himself limited, because by limiting God to be limitless, by saying God is so great, he could only be limitless. You can't limit God. That itself is a limitation. So God could show himself in small and in large, in limitless, in gvul and in gvul. So, but that's still two separate ideas. Is he manifesting in gvul, which is creation, limitations? That's one of the answers of how could it be that the Shechina is only is specifically in the Holy of Holies by the Aron. How could it only be there, not play, and nowhere else? That's limiting God. Well, the answer at the end of the day is because you can't limit him to being limitless. If he decides to be limited, he can be limited. But that's still two levels of limited and limitless. The true idea of it all is that there should be a connection between limitless and limited. So how do you have a connection between limited and limitless? The two opposites is to have limitless within limitations. Within the mispar, within the gvul, there should be believable. Where does this show itself? How does this show itself in practical life? Is when you have limitations. A person has to eat, a person has to drink, a person has 24 hours a day. You need to sleep a few hours. You have limited to what you could. It's seemingly you're limited what you could accomplish, how much you could accomplish, how much you could lift in life. And the idea is, what is the believable in that? That although you're doing everything within your limitations, you're achieving limitless. You're achieving much beyond any kind of a vision or any kind of plan of what you ever thought, any kind of whatever you planned on achieving, you could achieve so much more, even though you were right to be limited in your planning because this is the limitation, this is your limitations. But God says, I'm not going to be limited to the limitations. In your limitations, I'm going to bring in believable, to have believable ingvul. And that until Matan Torah, that wasn't possible. Because Shemaim Hashem, there was heaven, there was earth. There was limitless and limited. But Hashem, with Matan Torah, God said, what is Torah? Torah is specifics. This is how you do a mitzvah. It has measurements. It has shiurim. A sukkah could be so tall. Can't be taller, can't be shorter. Has to have so many walls. A menorah is 8 candles. Everything about Torah is limitations. Zmiras ha'ili chukecha, David said. That it's everything runs on a fine tune. If you're off by one note, the song is messed up. Torah seems to be so exact. But that's the way Torah comes in the details, but there's beyond the details and the details. And therefore, this is what Torah could affect in the world, is bringing the limitless into the limitations. And that's what happens in modern Torah. Even in this limited world, this world is represented by the concept of Egypt. He said, which is Meitzar Gvul limitations. I said, so how does the 10 Commandments start? I know Hashem Lekecha, I'm Hashem your Lord. Asher I can take you out of Egypt. I take you out of your limitations. Gili or in Sefer Believable, in the limitations, there should be the revelation of the infinite light. What Pratis Yai said, the Rebbe says to explain this better. See, Mispar Bnei Mispar. Not just does every mitzvah have within itself limitations, but there's also a limited amount of mitzvahs. There's mitzvahs Iyar, mitzvahs Daraisa. There's only 613. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's only 613. It's not 614. It's not 612. A person who says, I accept 612 and the 613 mitzvahs, it's a problem. And we have Daraisa, the biblical, and the seven rabbinic. The Mispar Bnei Yisroel HaMeschalik, the Shishim Riba, and it was given specifically, it says there had to be 600,000 Jews. Shishim Riba means 60 10,000s. Nitzutz in the Shamas, there's 60 10,000s, means 600,000 sparks of soul. Okay, there could be split sparks. Obviously, there's more than Baruch Hashem Kenyir, but more than 600,000 Jews alive. But these are called general souls. There's different levels. There's Yaakov Avinu, which is one soul. There's the 12 tribes, the 70 children of Yaakov that come to Mitzrayim. So that's from the 12 tribes comes to number 70, which is like the 7 parts of the menorah times 10 of each midah. That's 70. Yerach Yaakov. From the 70 comes the 600,000. From the 600,000 comes Baruch Hashem Kenya, the millions and millions of Jews, and then there should be much more. But again, it's all in the system of a number. Everything about Torah was dependent on numbers. That there's 600,000 Jews had to be there. There has to be 613 mitzvahs, and the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs is 620 altogether. And the whole purpose of going into these limitations is to achieve an elevation. That should create a thirst and a yearning. The idea is that within these limitations and in these numbers, it should ignite a thirst and a yearning that takes the person out of the limitations. That you go from the number to being a space that you can't measure and a number that can't be counted. So the Torah comes down in all its limitations. That's 613 into the number of 600,000 Jews. But through tshuva, the effect of Torah is it's tshuva, tashuvah, to return to our source, and tshuva is limitless. That's why tshuva overrides an avera, right? If there's an avera, you do sin, there should be punishment. It has to be override the punishment because tshuva is stronger than the 1 + 1 = 2. True is higher than the whole system of creation. And this is what the pasuk continues in Hosea. What does it mean? Because it's going to be great the day of Israel. So now the Rebbe explains what does it mean. Israel who zrias kel. In the word Yisrael is Yizra from the word Zayreya to plant kel. Planting kel. What does it mean? Planting kel. The koyal mitzvahs. Mitzvahs sheklusim hu ini natzdav b'chesed. The mitzvahs are chesed. All mitzvahs are traditionally comes from the kav of chesed, the kav of giving. And we say chesed kel kol hayoim chesed. The name kel is the name of chesed. So zrias kel means through the mitzvahs. We know zereya tzedakah matzmiach yeshuas that through mitzvahs you zereya kel chesed. Shiyadu miskashu b'nyanim gashmi. It comes down and it's planted into the physicality, like tzitzis. Tzitzis is made out of, has all the conditions. It has to be shot semer from wool, and it has to be 4 corners exactly with 8 strings on each corner. Tefillin and a so to tefillin is only can't be written. It's not a concept. It's specifically on a cloth, on a parchment. Tzedakah b'kesef diamond. Tzedakah is money, lifeless things, made out of metals. All mitzvahs is in the slavish has to come into gashmis, into physicality. Shizehu b'dugmas hazriya b'gashmis. That's zriya kel is zriya, the idea of kel of chesed. It's just like when you plant a kernel in the ground. The point of planting the kernel is ba'afar. You put it in the earth. That covers it. And it dissolves in the earth. And then it has a taisefes, right? One kernel grows a whole bunch of wheat. How could one kernel grow a bunch of wheat? Take that number and you bring it into the gashmis, into the earth. When it dissolves, like the idea of the trubah, when the person dissolves and becomes a battle, you nullify yourself, then it's a reyad limitless, and the plant it grows much more than what you've put in. A person would never plant a saw, which is an amount of grain, to get back the same amount of grain. If you put in 10 seeds and you get back 10 seeds, what's the point of putting in 10 seeds in the first place? The idea is you use a sa'at, so you should get kamakurin, which is multiple amounts of numbers from what your efforts, right? Investment wants a return. Return is not what you've invested, then it's not a return. But specifically, only when the seed rots in the earth, that awakens the bleak rule, the limitless in the earth. You take a limited seed, you put it in the earth, and it's dissolving in the earth, rotting into the earth, awakens the power of the bleakable in Oretz. To grow plenty. That's like limitless. So to mitzvahs, like we've learned many times in the pasuk, which is the first haftarah of Parsha Shemais, when we talk about the idea of going into Egypt. That the point of going to Egypt is like putting the seed in the earth, but the idea of boim yashish, through that it roots. What does it mean to root into the Yaakov, which is like the seed that gets buried and dissolves and rots into the earth? As the pasuk continues, Yisrael grows out Israel. That everything is, all of a sudden the world is full of the yuval, of what you planted. That even in the place that seemingly that was nothing, it comes out of plenty. What's nuba? To give to it. That in the earth, you should be able to have the limitless. This, like the Rebbe says, it's explained to Tzemach about this. That through mitzvahs, which is Zayreya, through Habarim Iyar Shishakav is Yatin Separach Yisrael, is the idea of the growing out the limitless. You put it in one seed and you get plenty. Yisrael said that Rebbe says more than that. What does it mean that great is the day of Yisrael? Like we said before, Yisrael, to plant the mitzvahs. Why is it called day? Why is we say the great is the day of Israel? That means everything becomes bright and light and clear. Like a day is clear, you see it. That the night is going to shine like the day. Like when the night shines like the day, the day becomes greater. When night is shining by day, that the night shines like the day, it adds the whole thing to the day. וכאשר גם הלילה קיים, אזי נעשה גדול בעניין היום גדול יום, שעניין זה נעשה ידי תשובה. What does it mean to grow? What does it mean to grow? How do you turn the night into day? That's through repentance. That's true. שהידו והבכם גם החושך לאור. That through teshuvah you could turn even the darkness of our life into light. But what does it mean to turn the darkness into light? So the Rebbe continues that there's two levels. One is you do a sheish beis deis b'inyan hachoshech. There's two levels how we look at the night. How do we look at darkness and night, so to say? Imurak heder, or is it dark because there's no light? Or that darkness is not just a lack of light. There is a concept of darkness. That fights light. There's a sort of say there's an energy of darkness, not just that we didn't happen yet to light up that place. Like a person who's parent. A person didn't do anything wrong, but they were never given the opportunity for light. But all of a sudden you turn on the light, okay, now everything's light. Or sometimes you've been actively creating darkness with our actions. Well, miles are true. What does tshuva do? That not only do we bring light to darkness, where the light is kind of lighting up a place that wasn't yet lit, therefore it's dark. Is header or the lack of light. Even things that we've created active darkness. Because of that, it's fighting light. Meaning the darkness of our life fights against things of light, of holiness. What does that mean in tshuva? That when you turn the things that are actively darkness into light, means that this energy that you've created that's dark itself becomes a power of light. Like it says, the sin itself becomes a mitzvah. Not that you get rid of the sin, but the sin itself becomes a power of positive. Is to transform, not just that you no longer are going to be sinning, but the actions itself that you've invested in this sin becomes a mitzvah. That you've taken something that's actively bad, which is an enemy to holiness. Meaning, to the extent where you know that God doesn't want you to do it, and you are intentionally rebelling. Even such an action you could turn into positive. Or even such darkness could be transformed to light. This is back to what the prophet's saying. The nations are going to say, how are you Jewish? How are you the chosen people? You don't behave like the chosen people. You're not the Jewish, you're not God's people. No, that we are the children of the living God. Even things that you may have seen as negative themselves turn to be positive, not because the negative is positive, but through avoided, through effort and tshuva and return, we could use that energy, as explained in many places, that sometimes it's the negative that awakens the person. It's time to make those changes, and therefore it's, so to say, a fuel for positive. Right? When you hit rock bottom, that itself makes you realize that you hit rock bottom. If you won't hit rock bottom, you may think everything's okay in your life. So therefore, sometimes it's actually the catalyst to making changes. In that space itself, you turn into bright. Again, not that we're saying that the bad is not bad because we're ignoring its bad, and therefore we say the person's perfect. The person has to do tshuva. But the person could reach such a level of tshuva where you could actually turn the negative, like I said, as a catalyst to being a positive. Instead of saying they're not the Jewish people, they're not God's people, they're the children of the living God. In the same place, like it's brought down about one of the ideas of tshuva is that real tshuva is, if it's not that you see another woman that you maybe were weak with, but even it's the same woman in the same situation, in the same place, all this it's a total like reliving the exact same scenarios of where the sin was, and you overcome that. That you turn the negative into positive. Right, we're going to stop over here. Hopefully we'll finish tomorrow on Friday. So we have a Maamar for this week. Have a wonderful day.